Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, live on CBS Sports Network, getting you set for Week 8 in the Big Ten. And among the offerings, it'll be 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time from Camp Randall in Madison, Wisconsin. College football pregame with Danny Kanell and more will be in Madison. Be sure to check them out. Y'all going live at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, right?
10 a.m. Yep.
10 a.m. Eastern Time. Should be a lot of fun getting you set for the full day of college football, among which is this big-time showdown between Ohio State and Wisconsin. Now, look, we are a podcast of transparency, a podcast of accountability. Also, we want to make sure that we are putting you in the position to know what you need to watch. The Buckeyes are 24.5-point favorites, but the Buckeyes are also the best team in the daggum country. I don't care whether you're talking about the polls. I don't care whether you're talking about the power ratings. In a year where we don't necessarily have monsters, Buckeyes are starting to look a little scary, a little monster-ish. And so as we get started looking at this matchup, I want you to go from the perspective of someone who thinks Ohio State can accomplish all of these things. And I want to start with the person who already said it on the Cover 3 podcast, because Tom Fornelli said, I think Ohio State is going to go back-to-back. I think they're going to win the national championship again. If you were rooting for your prediction, Tom, what do you want to see from Ohio State that would indicate continued development, more steps down that path towards claiming another national title?
If I was rooting for my prediction, of course I'm rooting for my prediction. I want to look smart at the end of the year. I think that one thing I'm looking for here, if I'm Ohio State, honestly, like, are we letdown proof? Because we saw what just happened to Penn State after they lost to Oregon. They went on the road to UCLA, let it beat them twice, and then that quickly derailed into James Franklin is now unemployed. You're Ohio State. Last week you were on the road playing Illinois. You didn't play an excellent game. You didn't have a great game, but you won anyway. And now you're going on the road to play a Wisconsin team that, frankly, is dead in the water. You're probably going to be in an empty stadium because I'm not sure how many Wisconsin fans are going to be turning out for this one. It'll probably be filled with Ohio State fans. And you've got Penn State looming next week on the schedule. So even if it's, Penn State without James Franklin, you still look at it as a far more difficult matchup than what you're going to deal with this week. So can you keep your eyes on the prize? Can you stay focused? And can you overcome what was something of a lackluster offensive performance? Because if you start looking into the numbers, Ohio State won comfortably, but offensively, that was their worst performance of the season since that opener against Texas. Whether you're looking at yards per play, success rate, whatever kind of stat you want to look at, they were not really very good in that game. They were just handed a lot of short fields thanks to their defense causing turnovers and Illinois making mistakes. So I want to see that offense kind of take things to another level against a Wisconsin defense that I think they should be able to manhandle. So even if it's just to feel good about myself, I'd like to see Ohio State stunting a little bit in this game, put up at least 40 points.
Yes, I want to see Ohio State come out and throw the knockout punch in this game early. Bama beat this Wisconsin team by 3 scores, Maryland by 3 scores, Michigan by 2, Iowa by 6 scores. So, like, if Wisconsin's a dead team walking, kick them while they're down, come out, beat them early. And I want to see a lot of these 4- and 5-star guys that Ohio State signs and like the younger guys who are on the bench. I want to see those guys get a lot of playing time. One of the best things this Ohio State team did last year was load management. They were pretty fresh as they got to the playoff. Didn't have to play their starters a ton. It bit them a little bit, potentially some of those games they lost, but they still won the whole thing. So who am I to really doubt their approach there? Get the young guys into the game early because your starters got in and took care of business on the road.
Oh, I would love for this game to be a game in the fourth quarter so we could do the jump around and actually have it be exciting, but I don't think we see that. I do think when you look at Ohio State, this is the one question I have for them. And I remember historically saying this about Bama or Georgia when they were so dominant and they were going to be heavy favorites in most of their games. I kind of want to see them get uncomfortable. Like, I want to see them tested. And I don't think you see it here. Maybe it's against Penn State. But even a quarterback who's playing great, and they've done a phenomenal job of kind of working him along, and he's playing as good as anybody in the country, and Julian saying, I don't know if they're going to get truly tested until the Big Ten championship game. I mean, if Penn State comes up with an all-world performance and their defense is playing lights out, somehow a backup quarterback comes in and makes them a tougher out, maybe you get that, but that's still at home. That's the one question mark I'll have, and maybe it's Michigan, maybe it's UCLA, the most resurgent team in the country, but I just wonder if they ever truly get tested where it's the fourth quarter And you need sort of some of those battle scars to show up and be like, all right, we've been in this position before. And it is a great spot to be in. Trust me, a lot of coaches would love to have this problem, and maybe it's not an issue. Maybe they're that much better and they just waltz right into a championship game, or maybe they're ready for that test when it comes the first time, which maybe be in the playoffs. That's the only uncertainty that I have about Ohio State. Everything else looks awesome, but we don't know truly how they're going to be against the very best, probably until the postseason.
This is a mentality thing, Danny. You mentioned those Alabama teams. You mentioned those Georgia things. Do they have it, right? I mean, this is a team that we have given a lot of credit to for their ability to reload. We did a whole anatomy of a reload segment here on CBS Sports Network a couple weeks ago. And so that hunger, in my opinion, has driven some of this early season performance. But now you're starting to get some flowers. Now you're starting to look around. Now you're starting to realize, like you mentioned, the rest of the schedule, you can easily paint a picture where until you walk into the big house in Ann Arbor, you're really not going to get pushed in any major way. When you're breaking down tape of this second half of the season, all those meetings, man, you got to make sure that you are working on yourself and not concerned about the other team. Because if you're only thinking about the other team, and you're Ohio State, you're just going to walk into this like, yeah, we got this. And yeah, I think you make a great point, Tom. Ohio State, did we really get beat this bad? I think Illinois won the success rate battle, right? Our friend Parker Fleming. Yeah, this is a spot where I think as you're breaking down the film, you are hoping to go in and you're trying to make this the corrections from what happened during that game against Illinois, and then you're trying to spin it forward against Wisconsin. All right, final word, Tom. The Ohio State Buckeyes, if they have one weakness, it is blank. What is it?
Boredom. Like they're extremely bored because we just saw the schedule. Like now that they're past Illinois, there's nothing left on that schedule that's really going to present much of a challenge for them until that Michigan game. And honestly, I don't know if Michigan on paper presents much of a challenge, but we know how that usually goes when those two teams get together. So I think you kind of have to fight apathy, and I think you just have to make sure that you're healthy getting through the rest of the season, because I think, honestly, the next time, Danny, you were talking about it, I think Ryan Day would love for his team to be tested, so they have to be in that situation. But I think, honestly, the next time this team will be truly tested is in the Big Ten championship game against either Indiana or maybe Oregon.
Danny?
I'm with you. I mean, that's sort of my big question mark. I mean, you look at weaknesses, I don't know if they have them. I think that's why they're Tom's pick, why they're the odds makers pick. And complacency, you mentioned it, Chip. Like a lot of things we've talked about are potential hiccups for this team. So far, they've answered every test with flying colors. You know, does the parity of college football catch up to them? I don't think so. But this team looks pretty complete all over the place.
You know, I think every team out there nowadays has weaknesses. Like the top teams are so much worse than they were even a half decade ago. I mean, on the power ratings, like more than a touchdown worse in some cases if you compare number one to number one. I think Ohio State has done a really good job of replacing what it had last year on the lines of scrimmage, but I don't think they're better along the lines of scrimmage this year than they were last year. So that's not really a weakness compared to most of the teams on their schedule, or really most of the teams in the country. But I don't think they're like, you know, special on the lines of scrimmage compared to like a Miami or Texas A&M.
Okay. Again, your standard is your standard. And I asked for relative, right? So I know I am picking nits. Last year, you had Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. Like running the football or throwing it, checking down to your backs. I mean, the what you had in that running back room was truly special. We talk a lot about the versatility. It's like, oh, they've got Bo Jackson, they've got Peoples, they've got Donaldson, they've got, and maybe by the end of the season, they will have settled into a place. But if I am picking nits, where the whole spreadsheet is like dark green, the only spot I'm like, okay, if this team does happen to run into a team in the college football playoff that can man up on, and I don't know if anybody can, but just saying, if they can man up on these wide receivers. Okay.
That team does not exist, Chip.
If we are picking nits, I do wonder, Ohio State, if they are forced to run the football in a situation, that would be the one spot where they can improve. And that maybe goes with Bud looking at what they've got up front. But again, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, kickoff from Madison. It's the number one team in the country, the Ohio State Buckeyes, against the Wisconsin Badgers. Be sure to check it out. You can watch it on CBS. You can stream it on Paramount Plus. Again, college football pregame live from Madison, starting 10 a.m. Eastern time.